All right, hi guys, it's Mrs. Ritter here. Last week we talked about greatest common factor and least common multiple, and today I'm going to show you a little review video about both. So we will start with the greatest common factor, which remember you will often see as GCF. And so let's go ahead and come up with a scenario here. Okay, let's say Mrs. Ritter has, I don't know, let's say 42 kittens. It's a lot of kittens. And how about 28 pizzas? It's a whole lot of stuff, right? And I am trying to create gift baskets for some of my very favorite students. Not that I have favorites, you're all my favorites, right? But I know how kids can be, and everything's got to be even, or else it's like, hey, Miss Ritter, that's not fair. So whatever gift baskets I make, they've got to be exactly the same. And so I'm wondering, how many can I make where I can divide up these kittens and pizzas equally, and so I won't have anything left over, right? So this is a wildly unrealistic example of when you could use greatest common factor, right? We are dividing things into even groups. So we're going to do that by writing out the factors of both 42 and 28, right? And so our factors are, what can we multiply to get to 42? That's where we're going to start, and I'll switch up the color. So let's see here. We can certainly multiply 1 and 42, right? 1 times 42 is 42. 2 and 21. We can do 3 and 14. And we can't do 4, we can't do 5, but we could do 6 times 7, right? So these are our factors that will get us to 42. 1 times 42, 2 times 21, 3 times 14, and 6 times 7. Let's do the same for 28, right? I know I can multiply 1 times 28. I know I can multiply 2 times 14. 3 does not go into 28, but 4 does. 4 times 7, and neither 5 or 6 go into 28, so we're done. And so when we are looking for the greatest common factor, right, we're looking for when we look at these numbers that we just listed, what's the biggest one that they have in common, the greatest one? Well, when I look here, I see 14. They have 14 in common. So what does that tell us? Well, we're going to have to look at these factor pairs, right? We said that we could do 3 times 14 to get to 42 and 2 times 14 to get to 28. So that means I can make 14 gift baskets and each one will have, and again, we're looking at those factor pairs, 3 kittens and 2 pizzas. I gotta tell you guys, I'd never actually make gift baskets with kittens in them. That's kind of crazy. That's just, it's Monday morning and that's what popped into my head. So when we are finding greatest common factor, most often it's going to be when we are trying to divide things into even groups, right? We list out the factors for both numbers, and then we find the biggest factor that they have in common, the greatest factor. Awesome. Okay. I'm not going to stop. We're just going to move right in to least common multiple. Okay, so here we go. Least common multiple, often seen as LCM. We are going to use this one when we are looking at cyclical relationships. Remember, we've talked about that in class a few times. When we're talking about cycles, this is when we were looking at the small Ferris wheel and the large Ferris wheel, trying to figure out, okay, if they start at the same time, when will they end at the same time, right? So let's go ahead and we'll just use that Ferris wheel analogy here. And if we have 2 Ferris wheels, and this little Ferris wheel, it goes around in, let's say, 40 seconds. And this larger one, let's say that it goes around in, I don't know, let's say 120 seconds. We need to find their least common multiple And so we are going to list out the multiples for each of these, 40 and 120, right? When we are looking at multiples or thinking about multiples, we're thinking whatever the number is times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, times 6, and we keep going, right? So 40 times 1 is 40. 40 times 2 is, I said 2, so I wrote 2. 40 times 2 is 80. 40 times 3 is 120. And keep in mind here, right? We're just thinking about that first number. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. And then we're popping a 0 on it, right? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Do we see how we did that, right? 40 times 1 is 40. 40 times 2 is 80. 40 times 3 is 120. 40 times 4 is 160. 40 times 5 is 200. 40 times 6 is 240. And we could keep going. And sometimes when you're looking for the least common multiple, you've got to list out a bunch of multiples. Now let's do the same for 120. 120 times 1 is 120. 120 times 2 is 240. And we could keep going, and we could go, but I noticed that we don't have to. We actually didn't even have to list the second one there. I noticed that 40 times 3 is 120, and 120 times 1 is 120. So what that tells us, our least common multiple is 120 seconds. And so what that means is that this little guy here will go around 1, 2, 3 times in the time that it takes this larger one to go around once. Least common multiple we use when we are talking about cycles, right? In the quiz you just took, another example here was a radio station, right? If one radio station plays a hit song every 12 minutes and another one plays it every 14 minutes, if they both play it right now, when will they both play it again? Okay, when we're thinking about cycles of time, we're going to use least common multiple. Awesome. You guys are rock stars.